I think we should be good. Let me check the audio.
We're live?
Yeah, we are live.
Whoa. It's crazy.
We're live.
Whoa.
Alright, audio's good.
Am I audible? Are there 7 people watching the stream already? That's crazy. Hey, guys. Oh my god, I sound like I just woke up.
I mean, to be fair, it's pretty early.
Yeah, I didn't get to bed until like 4 in the morning, and then I set an alarm for 11 because I was like, oh, I mean that's probably a good amount of time to give myself before having to talk. And then I woke up at like 9, so I got not a lot of sleep in the grand scheme of things. We got people piling. We got like 11 people in here now.
Whoa!
11 people in here now. Hello, listeners. How's everybody's Saturday going?
How's everybody's SAHcon going?
Yeah.
How's everybody's SAHcon going?
I think it's crazy how many like times people have all my friends have like asked me like, is SAHcon like a joke? Is that like a real thing? And I'm like, I mean, yeah.
Are you sure that SAHcon's real? Is anybody sure at this point?
I think it is. I think it is. I said 11 and we immediately dipped down to 5. I should just not look at this.
I mean, to be fair, my OBS is kind of wigging out right now and says there's 0 viewers, so...
I'm just gonna assume there's 100.
There's so many people watching right now.
Yeah, it keeps going up and down. That's weird.
People tune in, they see us, and they're like, ugh.
Who are these weirdos?
Hello!
Hello, the eerie red light. Welcome. I guess we're just kind of hanging out, waiting for it to be 12.
Yeah, we'll get started, like, as soon as it's noon.
Mm-hmm.
I need to adjust my sensitivity, because, like, it's... My mouth should not be moving at some of the points that it is.
I mean, I've just been struggling with Discord voice sensitivity recently so much that, like, I kind of gave up on it.
Yeah, I think they changed something recently.
Mm-hmm. They added, like, the noise suppression, and then that like, suppresses too much, and then if you turn it off, then you can hear literally every little unfiltered bit of noise. I have it off right now, so my little guy's moving his mouth a lot.
We're a chatty bunch. Hello, welcome.
Hello, chatters. Yeah, we got Homestucks in here. What's going on?
What is Homestuck? I don't know what that is.
We strive to answer this question today. Hello. Oh, hi.
Oh, the people are rolling in! Ah!
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna say we give it another minute and then we can get to, I guess, the itinerary. Yeah, we got VTubers now.
It's frightening.
Chat between 2 bars. That's kind of my living situation right now. I guess for everybody who I said this like a couple of minutes ago. But my apartment is like right next to a bar that's been closed for the past year because of the pandemic, and they just opened up last night, and it was loud on my street until like 3 in the morning. So I slept like dog shit. So hope everybody's having a great Saturday. Did we ever figure out the Guilty Gear Strive cast class specs? I don't know, John, did you?
No, why don't we get Octopimp in here?
Oh my god. Good morning to our patrons as well. Hello Simon, hello Corin.
Patrons
yeah,
in the
we got
chat.
like 50 people. All right, I think that we should. I think that we should probably get rolling the itinerary. I guess.
Sure thing.
How that
Hello.
may be.
Hello. Welcome to our panel for SAHcon.
Suck on these nuts.
Woo! You can't say that. You can't say that. That's illegal. That's an illegal joke.
I haven't caught any of the other panels this morning. So if that's like the third or fourth time you've heard this joke, I'm sorry.
It happens. Okay. Let me. All right. Bam. The panel has officially started. How to make a Homestuck podcast. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So, I guess okay. So, I guess for anybody who's not familiar with us, oh my god, you posted that like 10 people dropped. I'm gonna stop looking at the view counter. That's so funny. So, I guess for anybody who doesn't know us already, I'm Aiden.
And I'm John.
This is John. So about a year ago, we started a podcast that we call A Homestuck Podcast because we are incredibly creative people.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, and basically what we do, it's a very inspired concept where basically we are glorified React streamers, but we do it for an hour and a half every month. And we are rereading the comic, piece by piece, and we are currently like around the 6,000 page mark, a little bit past that, so we're getting pretty deep into it.
Yeah, we just finished recording the episode that wraps up part 3 of Homestuck, even though not many people really care about the part system on the map on the website. A Homestuck podcast you can listen pretty much anywhere, any mainstream place, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple.
Yeah, we have yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the link, Corin. Yeah. If you search Homestuck on like any better platform, then it will will come up.
Yeah.
So, I guess with some background on why we're doing this. So John and I have been friends. We've known each other for a while, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I don't think that we were very close until, I don't know, like last year probably. But I had always kind of wanted. So I guess like rewind. My background with Homestuck is that I was really into it when I was like in my early teens, back in like the 2011, 2012 time period. And I kind of fell off reading midway around, like, I forget exactly when it was. It was like, at some point in Act 6, I kind of fell off the wagon.
Right.
But I had always kind of wanted to revisit it because it was such a formative part of my childhood. And John is the person I know who is the most invested in Homestuck.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah. My history with Homestuck is I started reading in like late 2012, became a current reader in like 2014, and then I got really invested in this Homestuck roleplay Minecraft server, which was a nightmare. It was called Bucket Stuck, in case anybody in chat knows about it. And I just kind of stuck with it. I've been here. I'm locked in here. I really love Homestuck. Well, debatable. I have a back and forth relationship with Homestuck.
Yeah, but so I ran Google Podcasts. I don't think we are.
I didn't know that was a thing. I will look into that. I'm always open to having us on more platforms, so I will look into getting us on Google Podcasts.
More platforms is more listenership.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But basically, the kind of premise of this podcast that I thought was like a good idea was that I'm somebody who remembers Homestuck as being like Act 5, Act 2 exactly.
Yeah.
And John is somebody who loves the comic, and has been like current with it since it became like controversial to like. And I thought it would be like a really fun thing to kind of get together and like rediscover it, because John, you never reread Homestuck, right?
Yeah, that was the whole thing. You never finished it, and I never reread it. I just started, and it was just a one through line. Like I never went back on anything. I've never like reconsumed a Homestuck product. I've just consumed all of it like one time. And so like I was burdened by these 2012, 2013 memories of what Homestuck was like.
Yeah, that's pretty much the description. So yeah, the gimmick of the whole thing is that I get to read past the point where I remember things, and I get to be like, "Whoa, this is cool," or "Whoa, this sucks," and then John gets to revisit the content that they never revisited, and so it's been a journey. But I think that kind of what we wanted to get at with having a panel here is like talking about the process of like getting into making a fan project and why you should also try and make one.
Absolutely.
So John, what's up next on our itinerary? What do you want to bring us to here?
I mean, before we leave the Who Are We page, I think it's worth saying that our whole thing is like you're a big time Aradia liker.
I am.
I'm a big time Vriska liker. I've had a few people react to my username in the SAHcon Discord, and prior to the SAHcon Discord, or whatever anyone reads. Sans made a circuit. They have a pretty confused, mostly negative reaction. And here on the Who Are We page, unfortunately on the stream you cannot see the blunt on this image that Aradia is holding. It's been censored by your head.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
But I decided to include this funny clip from Wayne Radio TV that sums up me.
Famous Twitch streamer. Some of you may have seen this before. I think this has been seen.
So true. So true. Classic clip. Love that clip.
Yes.
I'm still trapped in Wayne Shredder. Please let me out.
All right.
So
okay, so hang on, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say so we're really gonna get into the development process of the pod up next. No, oh, it's playing again. Oh God, Wayne. Okay, development. Yeah.
Naughty Vriska likers are sent to the paper shredder. We like Vriska.
We do like Vriska.
Vriska over here.
We are huge Vriska fans, and I'm sure our listeners are tired of us saying it. Maybe they enjoy. Maybe they're also Vriska likers.
Yeah, so I think we kind of touched already on like the concept of it. But like, yeah, the idea was kind of like, you know, we have like the old head, who, maybe how to say this? Like the old head who like remembers like kind of the golden age, quote unquote, and then plus the new school fan, meeting of the mind. So that's kind of the whole concept for it.
Yeah. There were some like earlier concepts that we never really followed up on, because I had this idea of, since we're going to be a weekly podcast and since the Homestuck fandom is such a constantly changing thing, like one of the things that I wanted to do early on was to have like a dedicated weekly like news segment, because like you were coming into it, you wanted it to just be like a book club thing. Mm-hmm. And I wanted it to be more of a broad, like a Homestuck podcast, like it's just about anything Homestuck. But we eventually scrapped that, and it's pretty much just a book club thing now. We do bring up like relevant things when it's relevant. But concept-wise, we pretty much just stuck with the whole book club thing. We found our niche, and we've really stuck with it.
Yeah. I like the focus of it being the kind of the book club things. It gives us more time to like focus on the comic and like the reading for the week.
Yeah.
But it is kind of fun to have like a news segment whenever we can. The issue is just that like Homestuck is kind of a more niche thing now, and like there's like a kind of a fine line between like the news updates are always either like drama alert, which is I think is not the niche we want to fill.
Yeah.
Or it's like, hey, Viz Media has fucked us over again.
Yeah. That happens.
Neither of which are very fun. I mean, we'll talk about when Viz Media fucks us over, because they've been fucking us over like on a monthly basis for the past year, as I'm sure a lot of people are aware.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we kind of end up refining it down to like mostly just being a reading thing. And let's see. What do we got on this slide?
All right. Next up, we have the assembling phase. What I consider to be like figuring out like what each of us did and like our roles on the pod. Unfortunately, our third member of the podcast who has never spoken on the podcast is not here. Our lovely editor, Alex. Shout out to Alex.
Shout out to Alex.
Drew these lovely VTuber sprites for us.
Yeah. The whole thing with like assembling is like, okay, so you have an idea. How do you make it happen? And even if it's something that's really easy, like talking into a mic every hour, there's a surprise amount that needs to go into that. So like, needing an editor is a thing, obviously, and we are blessed with a very talented one, Alex. Like, what else goes into like the assembly? Would you say? We're talking like the week-to-week process.
No, I was thinking more like before we actually like posted the first episode, like when we were still figuring things out, because things were still kind of iffy then. During those first recordings, like things weren't really comfortable yet. Didn't really know what we were doing, and it kind of made our first few episodes a little bit awkward.
I mean, yeah, I think this kind of like ties into one of the things I want to emphasize here is like as like the part where I'm like, and you can do a fan product too, is that whatever the first part of it that you do is, it's going to suck.
Absolutely.
It's going to be garbage.
Yeah, I put episode 4 like later in the presentation. We could talk about that more specifically when we get to it. But man, episode 4, I think it's probably like one of our worst episodes, but at the same time, one of our best episodes.
Funny bad, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing, like, there's like we had to like hit a stride here, and there's still access to the stride that we're still working on hitting, like 60 episodes deep, even.
Yeah.
But like, I think the thing I want to emphasize the most is like, the thing that if you want to make like a fan project like this, even if it's something as easy as this, it's going to suck at first. It might suck forever, but that's okay because it's your thing and nobody can take that away from you. But our first couple episodes are so bad. I would recommend that if you're new here, and you have any interest in what we're doing, that you start like the earliest you start should be like in the Act 4 episodes, and maybe just save yourself the time and skip to the trolls. Yeah,
we kind of did like a soft rebranding, soft reset when we finished Cascade and we launched quote unquote season 2. Because I'm sure most people who come across our podcast have already read Homestuck, and if you really want to listen to us, I would suggest starting post Cascade, because you start getting into the more like we started like agreeing less like around that point. Like it was less familiar territory for you. It was a bit more contentious on how we felt about things post Cascade.
Yeah. But also, I think that the act, I had a lot of fun with Act 5, so I would say check those out. Hang on, I know that you have like the branding things come up here. Can you pull those up on the PowerPoint? Because I think those are funny.
Yeah. So next we have the branding phase. This is what we looked like before launch. This was the beta AHP cast branding. There was some debates on how this should look. I know. I went back in our chat logs and looked, and you did not like the idea of our icon being our heads inside the funny house.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's really funny to me because like I can't imagine it any other way. But like when I showed you this, you specifically were like, "John, change that. It's not good." But Alex liked it and I liked it, so you kind of got overruled there.
I mean, we changed it. It did end up changing.
It did end up changing. We also got rid of the now streaming on thing because you also didn't like the idea of like having our platforms right there. We should just have links that are clickable. And I would say that was a good decision because it makes things more accessible to just make, because like just saying that we're on a platform and you should search it up instead of clicking a link is it's a bit too much effort.
Yeah. I think the branding thing kind of leans into like the next point I want to emphasize, which is like, don't worry too much about your branding if you want to have like an audience.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing to do is to just put yourself out there, and if just keep putting yourself out there. Because Homestuck is a pretty niche community. So like, word will get around. You can promote yourself a little bit, but like as long as you stick around, like someone's gonna find it.
Yeah.
Is the idea. What's in the Wawa bag? Spicy Italian hoagie and a bag of chips.
Oh, that reminds me. I forgot to turn on the TV.
Oh, turn on the TV.
No. This TV is for anyone who needs visual stimulation outside of our talk sprites.
This is the stupidest bit.
It's not going how I wanted it to go. Here's your funny TV content. Enjoy this. Look at this.
Yeah. All right. There we go. Let's see. What do we got?
Oh yeah. The next branding image. This is what we look like now. It is not that different. It's just got the season 2 flair to it, where everything's red now and flipped just a bit. And yeah, branding really doesn't matter like at all, because despite Aiden not liking it originally, obviously we still stuck with it. So suck it, Aiden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that like I want, like I think I forgot to. I just remember that when I saw the new the refined bio, is that like the other thing that's kind of, I think, important to kind of our core vision is that we want it to be like, if you want to make this like your first experience with Homestuck, or like if you want to have a parasocial relationship with two podcasters and get into Homestuck for the first time, we can be there for you. Because we try to make things as like spoiler free as possible, or like reasonably like, maybe we'll have some fun hinting at things.
Yeah.
But especially now, where we're at now. I'm sorry, let's keep putting you off. Especially where we're at now, like where I don't know anything that's coming up. It's very much like, you can be along for the ride if you want.
Yeah, most of the fun hinting really happened during the first half of the comic, where like we were still covering ground that like you were familiar with. One thing that comes to mind is like in Jade's house, when like the different rooms are different colors that match up with the colors of the Alpha Kids. That was like a big illusion thing that I was like, hey guys, what does this mean? Because like obviously we knew. But now that we're at a point where it's like, you don't know, and I pretty much know everything that's gonna happen. The fun hinting really doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't really happen, because I don't really like hinting at things that like you don't know about.
It's not very fun to be like, hey guys, something crazy will happen next time, I promise. Or like, something crazy will happen eventually.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's more fun to get talking about the things that are interesting, like, immediately.
Yeah.
And then, like, the release phase. You want to talk about, like, the slow climb to having any kind of, like, listenership?
I mean, from the start, I mean, we have a good amount of friends. Man, you have some background noise.
Oh my god.
Shout out. No, never mind. No shout outs. No shout outs for the the sirens.
I'm gonna turn my noise suppression on until it stops.
Yeah, the initial release, like we're lucky enough to have like friends who are former Homestucks and like people who are already interested in Homestuck. So we kind of started out with a listener base, even though it was small. I remember we would get less than 10 listens per episode for like a good while, and then after a few relevancy attempts, hint hint, that's coming up in the see, it's not fun. It's not fun to hint at things that people don't know about. But we slowly grew. We're averaging like, I think like 160 listens per episode now.
Every time you bring up that number, it blows my mind.
Yeah, it's like far exceeded like how much listening would be happening that like I expected. I thought we would cap out at maybe like 20 listens per episode. But apparently people really like listening to us talk about things, which is surprising. But it took a while. It took a while. It's very interesting to look back on the listening graphs, which I could have included in here, because there's like these random jumps that happen. Some of them really don't make sense, but they happen nonetheless.
Yeah. It's kind of like, again, like, you know, if you want to, don't give up because you get like 5 views on whatever your first thing is. Because like, if you stop, then it's gonna stop at 5 views. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Something else that's part of the release phase that I wanted to talk about was should you post content on the funny days? Should you post on 413? Should you post on 612, 1025, 1111? Especially if it's like you're like a big thing. And I would say no, because like I had a feeling that something was going to happen on 413. I think everyone has a feeling that something's going to happen on 413, like regardless. And I elected to launch the podcast on April 1st, which is still a funny day to launch on because everyone immediately thought that like this was a joke, because we had been tossing around the idea for a while, and to launch on April Fools, everybody was like, is this real? Is this a one-off episode? Is this a real podcast?
Yes.
But yes. But even then, I unfortunately lined it up with the release of the final volume of Pester Quest. And in my mind, like, I knew that it was coming out, and in my mind I was like, well, people are already going to be searching Homestuck. So if we post then, people are going to search Homestuck and like find the podcast. Which our first episode is obviously like our most listened to episode, but I don't think that had like any impact on. Yeah. I think posting lined up with like a Homestuck release kind of like hurt us in the long run, because like, especially in the like general like April release frame, like if you're not like a big thing that's been hyped up for a while, people probably aren't gonna care.
Yeah, post if you want. If we're talking SEO here, post when like there's nothing going on. Like post during like a Homestuck drought. Like what's a month that doesn't have like a funny number in it? Like post like in July or something.
Yeah. Oh, also specifically, I'm not talking about Google. I'm talking about on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like Twitter is like, you know, a pretty decent place to self-promote.
Yeah.
For like smaller hashtags like that, I think. You handle all the branding promotion stuff. I just talk the most.
Yeah. I would also say during the release phase, don't be afraid to like just put it in places where you wouldn't normally put it. Like I posted about the podcast on my Snapchat, and also on my Facebook, which are like spaces that are like mostly people I know IRL, but I know like there's always the potential for like former Homestucks to be out there, and you don't know that they're former Homestucks, and you might pique their interest.
Yeah. You never know. I mean, like, we're everywhere, lying in wait. There are people like me who didn't care about this comic for like 10 years, lying in wait everywhere.
Yeah.
You never know where your audience might be. Let's see. Do you want to talk about some of our attempts at relevancy? Because these are actually pretty fun.
I would love to. Relevancy? Question mark. Way before, not way before. Late 2019. There was a funny little event called Mind Gala. And at Mind Gala, there was a Homestuck meetup that just happened to happen. It was a chance event that it was like the stars aligned, and all these Homestucks just showed up in one place. It was very funny. It was very fun. Shout out to everyone who was at the Mind Gala Homestuck meetup. Here's a group picture. It was a very fun time. But when we started posting the podcast, more of these online music events started happening. And I got the idea of, why don't we try like podcast sponsored meetups to like try to like not only like get like more Homestuck stuff going on, but to like maybe garner interest for our podcast. And the first of which was Netherment. This was our poster for Netherment, the Netherment meetup.
Our posters rock.
Our posters do rock.
If anybody was in the VR chat world, or is in the VR chat world, one, hi. Two, this is, now you can see the genetic heritage of our epic poster.
Yeah, you are absolutely gonna see like where that banner that I threw together came from, because it's great. I have been just editing the same image for like a year now, and it's great. But the Netherman meetup, it was fun. It was a bit of a rough time because I know that like there were people on Twitter who like wanted to come to the meetup. I think Skyplayer being the most notable one. And people just couldn't get in because the music events did not have very refined servers. And the
server infrastructure was a bit of a nightmare.
It was completely horrible, and the meetup was not that big. I think maybe like 10 people showed up. Maybe more. Maybe there were more people out there like looking for us and they just couldn't find us. And then the next one was Square Garden, the funny 100 Gex one. I don't really remember that one.
That was awesome.
It was awesome. There's a great selfie of me and you at the top of the tree. It's good stuff, but I don't remember it because, you know, it was a Friday night, had a little bit of, you know, some and don't remember. I remember getting an argument in a voice call about whether Vriska was a good character or not, and I have no idea who I argued with. But shout out to that person. You were wrong, and I was right. Vriska's great. And then we had another unplanned one. This was at Lavapalooza, and it was another fun time. This one also happened naturally because after Square Garden and Netherment, I was like, these aren't really working how I'm wanting them to work, and I think they should just probably happen naturally.
We got embarrassed because we still had very low listenership.
Yeah. But Lollapalooza was fun.
Another lesson: never give up.
Yeah. And the gist of this whole relevancy thing is like, you don't really have to like push it. It doesn't have to be like a sanctioned thing. Things can happen naturally. I think we got more people, like new people listening to the podcast from the impromptu Lavapalooza meetup than like the Nethermint and Square Garden meetups.
Yeah, I remember like a couple of like we had managed to consolidate like a pretty good group of like random Homestuck Minecraft skins hanging around, chasing around like Laura Less. and we ended up like having like a couple of people join the Discord server and like start listening just because they're like, why are all these weirdos running around?
Yeah, there were across all these events, there was always like a mass number of people in chat who were very confused because like if anyone in chat now was like at any of these events like in the game, if you ever saw like people spamming Homestuck stuff, like that was because of us. You're welcome. Forever will we be a plague upon the funny Minecraft music festivals. There will always be a Homestuck presence. It will always be there.
Just waiting on the next one. I think these are like the most fun things that we did.
Yeah,
I would love to do another one of these.
Yeah, the first two didn't really go like how I wanted, but they were definitely fun. Like these are always fun experiences, no matter how small the attendance rate is.
So yeah, so like, is it a bad lesson to say like don't be afraid to hijack someone else's thing? I feel like that's not the takeaway here.
I feel like that could be a good takeaway. Feel free to like hijack anything. If anyone in chat wants to promote something in chat right now, I will not stop you. Feel free to hijack the chat and just promote something. I don't care.
Yeah, that's true. Kate tells backwards. Like, if there's a con or a big get-together, there will be some Homestuck interference. Like, we're just continuing a long-standing tradition here, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, follow Simone on Twitch in the chat. Do that.
Seconding that, yeah.
Let's see. Do you want to talk about like how we like what goes into it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, relevancy. It doesn't actually matter. That was the whole takeaway.
Yeah, but if you want to, it's fun and there's nothing wrong with self-promotion.
Yeah.
Don't be ashamed. If you're if we're talking about Homestuck here, or you should always go into the mindset of like, I'm cringe but I'm free.
Yes. Yes.
You have no there are so many times. I don't know if this is an experience that you've had, because you're like more outwardly a Homestuck fan, but I've had so many of like my regular friends like message me, like who've like follow me on Twitter or something, and be like, why are you like, is this a thing you're doing for real? And I'm like, yeah, it is. It's cool. That's a really good takeaway. Don't kill the party that's cringy, kill the part that cringes.
Man, spitting facts here.
Yeah.
Look at all these promos.
Yeah, everybody check all these out.
You guys are tearing it up. All right. So, of course, being a weekly podcast, there's some weekly things that go into it. I wanted to talk a bit about the workflow that we have. There's a bit that goes into it. It's not just sitting down and talking, even though that is a big part of it. I just want to say, yes, read Cash Stuck. Thank you for talking about Cash Stuck.
Deep cut.
Deep cut, really great cut. I think is it still posting? Didn't it come back? I think it did. Whatever. So the weekly workflow. On my end, I am the page range planner. That's one of the roles that I fell into when we were still figuring things out, because it was kind of a preemptive thing. I know, like, early on you wanted to have input on the page ranges, but we realized that was a really bad idea, considering you're the guy who hasn't finished Homestuck.
Yeah, it wasn't really feasible.
Yeah, there was going to come a point where it really wouldn't make sense for you to have, like, any say at all on what we should be reading next. And so that's one of my main jobs, and one of the things that I have to consider is, like, trying to figure out how long we're going to talk about something, because no matter how much planning we do on something, it's really hard to tell, like, how much we're going to talk about something. And that's starting to be evident with this panel, because we spent, like, more time talking about the relevancy stuff than I thought we would. But yeah, trying to figure out, like, how much talking substance is in a Homestuck page range is really hard to figure out, because I know there have been some points where I was like, yeah, we're gonna spend an hour talking about this, and then it's like, maybe like 35 minutes, and I look like a fool, and we have a really short episode, and we have to buffer it out talking about like Bionicle or something. I know that happened with the intermission.
Are a good instance of best worst episode.
Yeah, divvying up the intermission into 2 episodes is probably one of the worst mistakes I've ever made.
This is another lesson to anybody who wants to do this, is to just do the whole first intermission in one go. There's nothing to talk about in it.
Man.
Unless you're like unless your whole gimmick is that like you and your co-hosts are like the world's biggest felt stands.
I'm sure there are people out there that are like that and could pull it off. And then there's the actual taking notes phase. Do you want to talk about what your note taking is like? Because I feel like mine is just like I just summarize what I just read and don't really write anything more than that.
Yeah, I tend to note take like pretty vigorously. So like the way that the cycle works typically is like at the end of every episode, like John will announce like what the page range that we're reading next week is. And so I try to like over the weekend or like the day before, I'll like do the reading, and then I'll go over it again and kind of write down like a basic summary of what happens in it and any like thoughts I have ahead of time. And I think the really important part of that is like going over it more than once.
Yeah.
Because I can like there's like a direct pattern I think between the quality of our episodes and like how much time we spend with the reading ahead of time. Because if you go over it more than once, you have time to chew on it. Maybe you think of something to bring up about it that you didn't think of before. Because like the thing about Homestuck is that it's a behemoth of media.
Yeah.
And if there's something in it that there's a lot of things in it that like might not be super interesting at first glance, but like if you think about it and like you try to contextualize it against previous stuff, then it's something like, oh, I want to go back and talk about that. Like we recently had an example of that in like I guess this is getting to spoiler territory. I guess if anyone hasn't read Act 6, then shut your ears for a minute. But like we were talking about how like we got like the whole cherub lore dump to give background on Caliborn. And the first time I read it, it was like, okay, so we have like giant space snake sex as like a thing in the lore now. Cool. But then like on reading it again, and like kind of looking at like like a fine tooth comb, because you know the shock value of it has worn off, and it's like, okay, I can like pick through this bit by bit. You start to see like there's like things that are really interesting that you can actually bring up, like kind of like for that instance it was like looking at how Caliborn's like really early childhood is portrayed, and then comparing that to like how Caliborn / Lord English as a villain is like portrayed throughout the comics. So like first as like this big stand-in for like class divide in Act 5, Act 2, where that's kind of the gimmick, and then as you go on, like he's kind of like this angry monster, and then it's like, okay, so he's this weird man-child. So it's like an example of like, make sure that if you want to do something like this, make sure you like really let the material like soak with you, because it'll make for a more interesting discussion, and it'll increase your enjoyment of it, which is a big part of why I encourage other people to do something like this.
Very true.
So that goes like into like taking notes and like going back to check on older pages if you need to. That's kind of what my process is like on my end, and I try to not, and like I said, I try to not do it on the same day. I'll do it on the same day sometimes, but like you really want to give yourself time with the material if like what your project is discussing it.
Yeah, I have a very bad habit of, like I said earlier, just writing down a summary of what I read and then closing my notebook and then just being like, well, I'm ready for the pod.
I know what happened.
I know what happens. I can say what happened and say how I felt about it.
Yeah. setting aside time to record, like, I mean, this is like just kind of like, you know, basic stuff. Like, if you want to coordinate with somebody, you gotta schedule. Um, I think something that's interesting that developed over time with kind of our early phases was initially, like, at its inception, we kind of had this idea that we had to be super prepared, and have like a backlog of episodes that we could put out in advance. So like in case one of us got sick or like, excuse me, or like didn't feel up to recording a week, we could just always have like one out every week, and that was like really important to us for some reason. We were conceptualizing it, and then at some point we just realized that's stupid.
Yeah.
And especially on the internet, like if there's anything that we talk about that's like current events, it just kind of looks dumb if we record an episode 3 weeks in advance, and we talk about like fucking like some like damn Daniel meme, and then 2 weeks later the episode releases and literally nobody has any idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, I feel like one thing that had some influence on the whole like backlog thing, because before we launched the podcast, we had like 4 or 5 episodes already recorded.
Yeah,
it was something like that. Weren't we both at school at that time? You hadn't graduated yet?
Yeah, when we started the podcast, I was like in my last semester of college, and you were also in college.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like school was a bigger factor in it.
Yeah,
for sure.
And with school, it's less predictable. Like you have a job now, and I feel like that's more easy to like. It's easier to like plan around because like
it's made it easier for sure.
Yeah. Dealing with school while running this podcast was a nightmare because I would
school. Other next takeaway: school sucks.
School sucks. Drop out of school.
Drop out.
Actually, don't do that unless you want to. Unless you think it's right for you, then drop out.
Yeah.
This might be your sign. If you've been looking for a sign, this might be your sign.
Take our advice. Yeah, I guess like other stuff. I like how we put editing up here, but Alex isn't here to give input. But important point, very important point to stress is that if you have an editor, if you're doing like literally like the same kind of project that we are, give your editor time. Like holy shit.
Yeah.
Do not record the day before your episode is supposed to go live. It's so horrible to do that.
Yeah. One kind of rough aspect of like getting rid of the buffer days and being more current with it. We typically record on Wednesdays, and we try to have the episode out for our patrons on Friday. And there have been a good few times where we've recorded like Friday night, and man, sorry Alex, sorry that we're so bad to you. Please forgive us.
Public apology. Yeah. And other stuff like, you know, making the thumbnails. I really enjoy making the thumbnails. I should have put some in here. They're really great. But like all the prep work, like all the other like miscellaneous like cleanup work, like that fits into like the weekly workflow where like, you know, we have like Wednesdays are our day to record. Thursday, Friday gets edited, and then like Saturday, like Friday night or Saturday, like whenever the episode is ready, I'll try to like make the thumbnail.
Yeah.
What about people who want to be part of the podcast and also edit? I don't think that's too much to balance. You just have to have somebody who's. You just kind of have to like. Let's work on your editor, right? Like your editor has to be okay with that amount of work. If you want to edit it yourself, that's awesome. It's just that when we were getting this together, neither John nor I have any experience editing audio, so we were like, we need a guy.
Yeah, and you already knew Alex, so it just kind of worked out that way.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, like, it's like your team's like work balance is like entirely to be decided by your team, pretty much.
Yeah.
And things change as you go on. Like, we didn't kind of land on this schedule of like record on Wednesday to have the episode out by like the start of the weekend, for like months in. So like, it's really the important thing to remember is like the workflow stuff is like most important to like you.
Yeah.
So like, if you have people who like your content, then they don't care whether you release it on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. So if you start out being like, we're going to release on like, if you say like, we're going to release on like Wednesdays, and then you find out that you just can't structure your schedule for that to be comfortable, just make it a different day of the week. It's don't put too much value in like the way that you've been doing things.
Yeah. Like, it's nice to have like a planned way of doing things, like you're used to it, but if it's just not working out, don't be afraid to change it.
Yeah.
Because I know we used to record on Mondays, and then we stopped recording on Mondays and started doing Tuesdays, and then it turned into Wednesdays, and who knows, maybe it'll become Thursdays.
I'm liking the Wednesday system.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you want to talk about how bad we fuck up all the time?
Oh, absolutely. We we fuck up constantly. It is a nightmare over here at A Homestuck Podcast. What is the first way? Or episode 4.
So episode 4, you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Episode 4 is when I think it's the Dave part. It's like when Dave first gets introduced and we get all of the puppet stuff. And you know, it was one of those first moments where it's like, how do we want to talk about this content? Because like the whole Dave and Bro situation, like Bro's Smuppets, it's like weird and horrible and bad, and it's kind of hard to rationalize because it's in Homestuck. And episode 4's big downfall is I tried to like contextualize it by comparing it to a fetish website that I heard about from Ray William Johnson back in like 2011, and it made the entire podcast just fall apart. That episode, oh my god, just thinking about it, it is a nightmare.
Yeah, and I don't know whether the takeaway there is to like, if there's some material that you don't know how to talk about, like address it, like go over it beforehand.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway. I do think that's the takeaway.
Just don't bring up Ray William Johnson.
Yeah, do not bring up Ray William Johnson during your Homestuck whatever you're gonna make. If you do, you probably might get cursed.
But yeah, like the fuck ups happen. Basically, what else do we have on this list? Making things interesting. Yeah, so I think that a big part of this is, even though, like, you know, ultimately if you do something like this, like, the most important thing to remember is that it's for yourself, and you can do whatever you want with it because it's your damn show. It's good to make, like, try to do whatever you can to make things interesting. And if you're getting to the point where you're basically just, like, giving, like, a rote listing of, like, whatever happened in that reading.
Yeah.
Like, consider like what you can do with your process to like make it more interesting on yourself, like to, you know, like if it's like to go back and like reread something out like older, to like give it to, like try to get better context to it. Maybe talk ahead if you've like, I feel like talking ahead is like maybe a desperate measure, because you want to have, like, for something like this, you want to have, like, all the chemistry happen on air. Like, you don't want to be going through a conversation again the second time you record it. But it's try to, like, bring a perspective to things that's not, like, you and your buddy just agreeing, like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, that's kind of boring.
Find a way to play devil's advocate for Homestuck. Or don't. It's like whatever. It's like there's kind of an important thing to remember is like, even though ultimately like it's for you, and whoever's doing it, try to have some way to like make it interesting for people. Try to have like some kind of conversation you can spark between you and your pals.
Yeah.
What else do we have in this here? Forgetting stuff. Forgetting stuff is a huge thing for us.
Yeah, for a weekly podcast, we are very bad at remembering things that we probably talked about, probably not even like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So I guess if anybody wants to learn from our mistakes, if you really want, if there's like some topic that you really want to come back to later, then make sure you have a system in place for like reminding yourself, like, oh, there's this really interesting conversation between Dave and Terezi in Act 5, Act 2, where like Dave is like gonna go God tier, and she set this whole thing up so that whatever happens, they both the Daves come back, like converge, and one goes God turn, one doesn't. And it's like this whole really interesting conversation about causality and has these weird implications that just goes over our heads, and we're like, all right, we got to put a pin in this, and then we never talked about it again.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting if somebody went back and like listened through all of our episodes and wrote down like everything that we said, put a pin in, and just like find the ratio of things that we actually bring up again.
Then we could do like a catch-up episode. It'd be great. Yeah, there's like other stuff, like, you know, fucking up the outro is a really big one that I do constantly. We're like 60 episodes in now, and I still struggle to remember the whole outro.
Yeah, I think you had it for a while. I think you like nailed it. Like, and then we launched the Patreon, and then we started having to like say people's names, and like for a good bit, like there at the beginning, like you would forget the fact that we had patrons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'd also like forget to tell people that like you can go to go to all of our website places and follow us or join the Discord or give us money. And whenever I remember to do those, engagement shoots up. So
yeah.
If you're going to be promoting yourself on your own thing, remember to do it, because it'll give results.
Absolutely.
If people want to engage with your stuff, they're not going to do it by not knowing where to go.
Yeah, like if people know it's out there, they'll go looking for it. Like we had a big engagement boost just from this panel being announced. Like, if people know you exist and like know your stuff is out there, like they'll interact with it.
Yeah, it's the beautiful thing about this community. I think it's having like a relatively small fandom. Yeah, there's you always fucking up the patron names.
Absolutely. I know at the beginning, like, I had this huge crisis over whether I should say a patron's last name, and I was like, why don't I just ask them? They're in the Discord.
Yeah, right.
And some, you know, some people have names that are hard to pronounce, and I have to ask them. You know, it happens.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of like the whole idea of like this part. It's like, you know, shit happens. You just gotta take it in stride, gotta learn from your mistakes. And if you want to put yourself out there and like make a creative project, it'll evolve. It'll come into its own. You can't like really force it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the whole idea here. What else do we have here? Oh my god, we have like
I think we should like probably pick up the pace here, because we
gotta expedite this.
I earlier I was like, are we even gonna be able to fill up the hour? But now, oh my god, it's just the podcast. It's just what it's like running the podcast. We do not know how to manage time at all. Over time, podcasts will naturally change. I think that's the gist that you can get from like a lot of this. You make mistakes, you deal with the mistakes, changes will happen. Don't be afraid of change. It's like puberty. Don't be scared of it.
Yeah, and this extends to any project.
Yeah.
Anything that you make. Let's see. All right, yeah, this is like I think you kind of wanted to bring this up, but this is like kind of like the fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, not really fun.
Having facetiously.
I really wanted to talk about this idea that no project is a vacuum. A lot of people, like, you know how it is. Homestuck is not political.
There's absolutely no political subtext in this comic. Nothing of that sort. I guess if any, to clarify, if anybody here has not heard us before, this is a running bit we have, because there are a ton of things you can take in the comic that are like very politically charged or like have like ideological implications.
Yeah.
And you know, it's ultimately like your decision, like how much you want to acknowledge that. But like, I would say, don't be scared. Like, you're not going to exist in a vacuum, and like, don't be scared to embrace that.
Yeah. Being a weekly podcast that started immediately before the world ended and proceeded to get worse, we
recorded our first episodes in March 2020.
Yeah, I think like the second episode we recorded like the day after like my school announced that we were not going to be coming back to physical classes for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, the real world is going to have a presence in your project whether you like it or not. Um, yeah, just as the pandemic began. Some topics we felt like we had to bring up because like I said, it's a weekly podcast. There's the point at the beginning where we just talk about like what's going on like in our respective lives because we don't really talk much outside of the podcast. I think we fill up each other's limit for each other and the amount of time we record every week.
We fucking hate each other.
Absolutely. So the main thing that comes to mind is during the Black Lives Matter protests, there came a point where we were like, we think we should talk about this like on the pod. Like we don't want to like come off as assholes, because especially during that point in time, it was one of those things where it's like, if we don't talk about it, if we don't bring it up, we're gonna look really bad because it looks like we're in our closed Homestuck garden, just pretending it doesn't exist. And at that point, like our platform was really small, so like I probably to some people they would look at that and be like, you don't really have a platform. Why do you feel the need to talk about this? But you just get a feeling of like when something should be brought up or acknowledged.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's not even like a question of like obligation. Just kind of feels like if sometimes it just comes into like cultivating an audience, and at times like that, like I feel like there are times when it's really important to, or not even really important, but like just as a creator, like sometimes you might want to like just kind of give your audience like a little bit of a flick and be like, hey, like if you're the kind of person who is bothered by like us like voicing support for like Black Lives Matter or some such, or being like, man, I hope Trump loses the election, if like you have a problem with that, then like you can leave.
Yeah,
like don't be afraid to like cultivate an audience like that. Like you don't have like obviously you don't have to make it like a full-time like real world events show, because we're talking to Homestuck convention about making Homestuck projects, but just like you don't have to exist in a vacuum. Don't feel pressure to exist in a vacuum.
Yeah. Also, I have no idea if we're allowed to go over or not, but if we're not allowed, sorry, SAHcon staff, we are going to go over. Please forgive us.
We're on the stands. Made a circuit Twitch stream anyway.
Yeah.
They don't have any control over it.
All right. What? Yeah. The next point was basically learn what should be brought up and what should not be talked about at all. And I feel like this is the bridge to the next part of this no project as a vacuum, and I feel that also applies to fandom drama.
Oh my god!
Because man, I feel like a lot of people don't realize this, but like Aiden is just a guy.
I'm just a dude.
He's literally just a guy who's here to like read Homestuck. Like he is not embedded in any like fandom space or anything. Like I'm that person, and so like when drama starts happening, like I start feeling like, should I say something, because I feel like some of our listeners might know about it, and there have been a lot of cases where I'm like, nah, this should not be brought up during the podcast. There are a lot of things that I think of, but yeah, learn.
I mean, it's kind of a difficult thing to bring up, right? Because we decided to not talk about it. It's like, you want to talk about things we decided to scrap or like to ignore.
Yeah. Most fandom drama that we chose to bring up was like Viz stuff, because that was something that like you could like talk about and it not be like a weird thing for you to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Like person X posted this take on Twitter is not something we're going to talk about on the podcast, even though person X is like a huge person in the fandom. That's like not our thing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like other people in the fandom should probably learn that.
I think the biggest thing I always harp on in regards to that is like, if somebody you don't know posted a thing on Twitter, like it's not your job to care.
Yeah.
Like random proselytizing from what I think about that kind of thing, but like Yeah, like you don't always need to have a take.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's like just a random thing, but yeah, basically, I guess the last point on this slide is like recognize your platform and like act accordingly. Figure it out. Figure it out. Don't be afraid of being canceled. Also, if you're worried to have a hot take, and it's not if it's not some stupid shit, then like have your hot take. Like who cares? It is 1 p.m. Eastern, so if people are dropping off, thanks for swinging by. We're gonna sit around here, I think, and take some questions.
Yeah.
Try to wrap up.
Yeah. Is the Q&A point the next part? Oh, well, last slide. Why you should make a Homestuck podcast. I think we can speed through this. It's fun.
It's a great way to connect with your friends.
It is a great way to connect with your friends. Like Aiden said earlier, we did not talk that much prior to doing the podcast, and doing the podcast has definitely been a fun way to like get closer with Aiden, and we are now best friends who hate each other.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing. I didn't know John that well before doing this, and I feel like I've really gotten closer to them, and like it's been a really fun bonding experience, and it's been fun just to talk to them. So it's great. I really recommend if you have any friends who we want to do like a project with, like fucking get a group together, like do whatever you want.
Yeah. All right. It's pretty easy to find like what you want to do. Like our thing is doing the book club thing, but with the nature of Homestuck, like we said earlier, like if you're really into the intermission, the midnight crew, the felt, you can probably get away with doing an entire podcast dedicated to that. Mm-hmm. Homestuck is a very big bowl of things to work with, and there's a lot to work with any like particular thing. Like I think class specting podcasts are really interesting, and if that's your thing, you can do it.
Yeah,
there's so much to work with.
If you're the world's biggest like Feferi fan, then like you can make your Feferi fan podcast.
Yes,
like we're not filling that niche. You can do it.
Yeah,
it's great. Even if we were, like, more voices is always fantastic.
Absolutely. Another good point is that there's already a lot of Homestuck podcasters that you can learn from or reach out to. If you want to learn something from us, well, maybe you've already learned something from us. Who knows? But there's a lot of other like big time Homestuck podcasters out there that probably have their own communities that you can join and talk to, and it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We need competition. That's the
yes,
that's the final point.
We need competition. We would if anybody wants to like start a project like this and then like I don't know like have some kind of network or something, like I don't know, like I would love to exist in a future where we have a bunch of different voices with different takes doing this kind of thing, and like we just get more like kind of digging into like the text of the comic itself and etc. or like the stuff that comes afterward. And we haven't gotten to the epilogues yet, but we will be doing the epilogues and like all the post comic stuff. But like having like a conversation happening that's more than like angry comments on Reddit or Twitter, I think is like a really positive thing for like any community, and I think it would be great if you want like anybody want to contribute to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One fun thing that I like to do is whenever I discover that there's a new Homestuck Book Club podcast out there, I like to @ them on Twitter and just say hi.
Podcast with two Homestuck podcasters arguing for an hour. Yeah, like if you like have like a friend or something who you like disagree with on a lot of stuff, that would be like good discussion. Like if you like, I feel like that would be like a really interesting thing to listen to. Like if the whole premise is that like we have these two clashing voices and it can be like civil instead of like people on Twitter trying to dox each other, call each other slurs for having the wrong opinion.
Yeah.
Like just more conversation. I think this is like a great format for encouraging just like positive discourse.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's like pretty much all we have.
Yeah.
We're
that'll
4 minutes over.
That'll bring us to the Q&A part. If anybody has any questions at all, now's your chance. We'll
Yeah.
answer them. I know nobody submitted questions to the Q&A poll that we put out there.
The Google form. Oh, we didn't have to talk about that. That's embarrassing.
No, it's funny. I think it's really funny that nobody responded to our Google form. I think it'd also be very funny if nobody had any questions at all in the chat. Oh, when's Problem Sleuth? Never.
When is Problem Sleuth? I've been pushing for Problem Sleuth for a long time.
I'm never going to read Problem Sleuth. It is never going to happen. I am a better person not reading Problem Sleuth.
I hate you.
How are we? Oh, I'm good.
I'm doing pretty good. Jailbreak episode.
I pitched that, and Aiden shot it down.
How long ago was that?
I thought it would have been funny if our first patron episode covered Jailbreak, Bard Quest, and isn't there another one?
Jailbreak, Bard Quest, and Problem Sleuth. Yeah, that's it. What do you guys use in terms of audio equipment? Okay, this is the part where it gets really scuffed. Good enough is however good you think it is. So in terms of audio equipment, I use a fucking blue snowball, and I sit in my closet for acoustics. And the audio quality might show, but remember that like the thing that I tell myself is that one of the most like popular genres of content on YouTube for the longest time was like some annoying white guy, not unlike myself, like monologuing in a whiny voice about YouTube drama over footage of like CS:GO surf maps.
Yeah.
So like you can literally do whatever the fuck you want. There is no good enough.
Yeah.
As long as people can like hear the words you're saying, like you are golden.
Yeah. I personally like bought a like $80 microphone, which is what I'm using now. I was using a headset that did not sound that good for a good while, but I got this microphone because I wanted to sound better, because I sounded pretty rough, and it was just my personal decision to want to sound better. I knew that like people were enjoying the podcast with me sounding bad, but it was just a personal feeling of, man, I really wish I sounded better.
What is one of your favorite episodes you did? Oh, I gotta look in the thumbnail folder and jog my memory.
Any episode with the Black Queen.
Hell yes, brother. I feel like as like the further we go in, like my answer kind of defaults more and more to like whatever the last one we did was.
Yeah.
I think that like a really fun series of episodes actually recently was that we covered Openbound not too long ago, which is a nightmare part of the comic that we hated.
Yeah.
But that was a 3-episode sequence there. And even though it was like a horrible nightmare, it was fun. It was really fun because all of the controversy surrounding it, not because of the controversy, but like because of the controversial material within the readings, kind of gave us a lot to like talk about.
Yeah.
Like it sucked, but it sucked in interesting ways.
Absolutely.
I would say probably another favorite. I think Cascade is like, you know, hard to go wrong with. Cascade was a really fun episode.
Yeah, I don't really have a favorite episode. I just enjoy everything for the most part.
Have your thoughts on the comic as a whole changed since you started the pod? Let me think about this one. So like I always had a positive memory of it. And I think that it's still like I have a very positive impression of it. I'm enjoying it a lot. But I think that something that changed for me was that like I was kind of really impressed by like how good it is. The amount of like cohesive vision that you can see reading it from the start, and like things are set up like thousands of pages in advance is really impressive, because there's kind of like this conception that like I think we were talking about this before, but there's like this misconception that like the first 3 acts of the comic were like just purely user based, and like Hussey had like no vision for it, or like it was all like kind of goofing around because the forum suggestions were dictating it. And I feel like that impression is kind of that idea is kind of unfair because there is a lot of stuff in it that I can really appreciate that like is set up for things far in advance that at the very least is like if at the absolute worst it's like a very clever reinterpretation of like a minor detail.
Yeah. As for me, going into the podcast, I being the resident Homestuck liker, I already liked Homestuck. But I was still pretty iffy on how I felt about like all the stuff that I had read back in 2012, 2013. And I was kind of scared going into the podcast because I was like, is reading this going to make me not like that thing that I love? And that didn't happen. It just kind of cemented my love for the comic so far, and it's just been a joy getting to reread it.
Yeah, it's going great. I think we're like 10 minutes over, so if we don't get any extra questions in the next 10 seconds, I'm gonna say that we
10 seconds. What
10
if
seconds starting now? Type your questions now.
What if someone's typing a really long question?
They can get to us on Twitter or in our Discord server.
So true.
We'd be happy to address. All right. So I'm gonna wrap this one up. I think
You gonna take us to the close?
I am. I'm gonna try to how to adapt this. Bring up the Tahu dancing.
Okay.
But, all right. Now I can work with this. All right. So anybody who's still sticking around, how do you read the official version? Okay. I'm gonna go back to this one. This is a really good question. So there's a thing that we like to promote constantly. Called the Unofficial Homestuck Collection by a member of the fandom. It's basically like a whole offline backup of the comic. I'm gonna just grab the link to this because this is the if you want to read Homestuck, if you're any kind of fan, I would insanely recommend getting this. This is basically just a complete offline backup of the whole thing. It has Flash functional. It's in perfect condition as Viz Media continues to let the comic rot. So just go and download that. It's a much better medium than reading the official version on Homestuck.com.
Yeah, absolutely do not use Homestuck.com. One thing that we've been doing in the pod is Aiden has been using the Unofficial Homestuck Collection, and I've been sticking to the normal website, and it has not been fun. Looking at all the things that Viz has neglected, and it really ruins the experience. So go to the Unofficial Homestuck Collection, download it to your computer. It'll be great.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So now I guess I'm gonna wrap this up here. So thank everybody for attending. It's awesome that anybody sat here, chilled with us, listen to us run our mouths. And yeah, if you want to check us out, we are on Twitter at AHPcast. I'm going to drop that link real quick.
Drop all the links. Just
all the link. You can get all the links on the Twitter. So yeah, just check us out on AHPcast. If you want to listen to us, we're on pretty much every platform. Just got to look in the Google Podcasts. It's a good question. Hit us up on the Discord. Always happy to see people join the Discord. And thank you guys. Thank you, SAHcon, for having us.
Thank you all. Love you all. Thanks for showing up.
Shout out to SAHcon. Shout out to you guys. All right. I hope everybody enjoys their weekend.
SAHcon these nuts.